Well, hey, folks, we're back with none other than the amazing Spencer Bennett. How you doing, Spencer?
Brant, I'm fantastic, brother. How are you doing?
Man, I'm doing good, man. It's like, what do you not talk about right now in the news? It's absolutely outrageous, crazy.
It's almost like trauma-based mind control.
Uh-huh.
If, especially in Europe right now, where they've cut off the Nord Stream pipeline. It
Wow.
looks like it's going to be a very cold winter over there. And now, the announced passing of Queen Elizabeth II
Right.
on 9/8/22. We talk about a lot of things here on the channel here. There's some things we can talk about, certain things we can't,
Right.
just for decorum's sake. But obviously, you're going to see over the next 17 days, which it's usually 10 days of mourning. Prince Charles, Prince Bonnie, Prince Charlie has
Right.
decided that they're going to do 17 days. So they've added another 7 days to the mourning period, which is 17 is kind of an odd number, isn't it?
17
But
days. I've never heard of that.
17 morning.
Huh.
We've seen the rituals ramping up to the announcement of her death,
Right.
whether that be her picture on the Arch of Vale in London or her
Wow.
picture posted all over Stonehenge earlier this year. On each one of the stones, which was rather interesting. They projected pictures of her throughout her reign all over Stonehenge. We know the connection to
Wow.
the Druids and human sacrifice there.
Yes. Yeah.
More than one person and Christian leaders have even come out and said, well, she was a great Christian lady. I've got to
Do
tell
your
you,
research there, journalists.
Brant, I got to tell you, there's a reason we don't have a monarchy in America.
Right.
Uh, the right to rule isn't a right unless
Right.
God ordains it.
Mhm.
Just because you're born doesn't mean you're special.
Right.
As we know, life is not fair, but there are those in our societies who believe they have a right to rule by divine right, which isn't divine at all. As a matter of fact, many of the things that they do when you don't see them or on their private estates
Right.
is rather blasphemous and obviously not divine at all. And most people haven't done their research into the royal families, which now
No.
America will be lied to on the television, or the television, over the next 17 days or more, saying what a great leader and wonderful person
Right.
Queen Elizabeth II was, and what a great opportunity that Prince Charles, who's going to lead us into the Great Reset, by the way, us, because America, we're so fascinated with the royal family. Prince Charles is a big WEF guy. And Brant, you probably know this, but Prince Philip, his dad, once said that he wanted to come back reincarnated as a virus and wipe out the human race.
Oh, wow. I didn't, I
That
actually
sounds
haven't
very,
heard that.
yeah, Prince Philip. Prince Philip. Yeah.
Okay.
So that kind of gives you an
You
idea.
you know what? I do remember that.
Yeah.
I do remember that. And it was almost treated like a joke, but yeah.
It's
But
a joke.
something else I remember though is a recent speech by Charles where he was talking about the world governments coming together and giving all their military power and resources to a person. Did you catch that?
I did. And as a
Yep.
matter of fact, he thinks that climate change is the worst thing in the world, and we should use our militaries to force
Oh yeah.
people and force countries to
Right.
abide. Okay, so you've got an unelected guy who's born into this, who has obvious ties to known pedophiles,
Right.
and good buddies with people like Jerry Seville. I don't know if I'm not
Yeah.
going to tell you what this guy did, but he was horrible at
He
what he
he
did to
he was a
children.
serial molester.
Yes, but he was
Mhm.
good friends with Prince Charles. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
Jeffrey Epstein, we know his ties with Prince Andrew, Cardinal Ball. There's a whole bunch of these people in and out of Buckingham Palace. And speaking of Buckingham Palace, let's not forget the video of the young child
Yes.
letting himself down by a window by tying bed sheets together. He was
And then
totally
falling the rest of the way.
and falling the rest of the way and dying, supposedly dying. But yeah, trying to escape Buckingham Palace. Why was he trying to escape? Why was he naked? Why did he tie bed sheets together? Um,
Well, how about the picture of Epstein and Ghislaine in front of the same exact cabin and logs? You can even count the knots on there. It would almost be the same angle as Queen Elizabeth, the same cabin too. You know, some would speculate, well, that's through Prince Andrew. Well, I wouldn't be surprised, but
It's
my
not like these
goodness,
people don't know who they are dealing with.
right.
And we know a lot. For those of who did the deep dives and done the research, these are the same people the Bible warns us about.
Right.
Those people who are rich that set themselves up as kings.
Mhm.
When Satan gets thrown down into Tartarus and he is laying on his bed of worms, the kings will get up off their thrones and go, "Oh, look, you've become a man like us or woman."
Right.
Um, that's where they're going, because after 70 years, you don't know what's going on in your own castle. You know very well, and it's hereditary. I mean, let's look at it. Let's look at the bloodlines here. They changed their name to Windsor.
Mhm.
And folks, I know here, I'm going to pause right here for just a second, Brad. I feel like we need to say this. If this is the first time that you're hearing stuff like this, we don't hate anybody.
Right.
Okay. But if you're only this far deep into your TV screen and believe everything the media tells you, um, you better get on your knees and ask God to start opening some doors and opening some windows and these eyes, because there are some very evil things in this world. There's a lot of gematria that has been surrounding the Queen's announcement of death.
Mhm.
I think it's rather interesting that on 9/9 that Prince Charles officially takes over as king. If you add 9 and 9 together, what do you get?
18.
Which is divided by 3. What?
Oh,
6
wow.
and 6 and 6. I mean, it's not there. That's not the only one. There's so
Well,
many other.
there's, you know,
And
there's
I'm not accusing
countless.
anybody. I'm not accusing anybody. I'm just saying they love to play with their numbers and their symbology. That's another deep dive. If you want to find out more, just look up symbology of the
Right.
royal families and what it means.
Well, you know, Spencer, I don't know if the governments of the world are becoming more desperate because people are awakening, but there is an awakening. People are
Yes,
starting to
sir.
realize that the movie industry, the music industry, the government, the media, they're all playing on the same team, and it's not for you, folks.
No.
You know, I'm still amazed at people who believe the word of governments that poison your food and poison your water, poison your air, and tax you upon the taxes, and steal from your children, actually steal your children, and they abduct children. And, you know, there's just no secrets anymore. I don't know if if it's what they talked about, the prophecy in Daniel, where knowledge has increased, or that plus the fact that everything is so accessible now on the net, some search engines more than others, some less than others.
Mhm.
But, you know, Spencer, I tell you what, if people don't believe in the Bible or the God of the Bible, or this war between good and evil, after seeing everything that the media does report, folks, you're on a different planet. You got to wake up, man. You got to snap out of this and understand, you know, that there is a war right now against good and evil, and the Bible is true. It continues to be true. And
Yeah.
folks, you're in that story right now. What are you going to do? That's like Bob Dylan said in his song. By the way, Bob Dylan was radically saved, and his album "Saved by the Blood of the Lamb," or one of his famous songs at that time. You know, it
Mhm.
might at that one time he was saved. You might be the devil, it might be the Lord, but you're going to have to serve somebody. Who are you serving, folks? But I tell
Mhm.
you, Spencer, the writing's on the wall, literally.
Speaking of Bob Dylan, he was in a 60 Minutes interview
I saw that.
where he said he sold his soul to the devil.
Mhm.
And that's not just whatever. I mean, the devil will give you every earthly pleasure, and sin is fun for a while, but there's going to come a day when you're going to have to pay up. Katy Perry said the same thing. I continue to pray for her. She's a
Mhm.
pastor's kid. We all know they come under special attack by the enemy, and
Right.
hopefully, she's going to get saved. But God is working on people, and people
He
that you
is.
never thought would get saved, which is wonderful. because our God doesn't give up on anybody, and thank God he doesn't.
Right.
Thank God he
He
didn't
didn't
give
give
up.
up on me.
Yeah, I know, right? Chief of sinners, brother, chief of sinners that I am. And his grace is abundant. But we need people to start realizing that if they're living in their comfort zone, it should be about this time that you're starting to feel a little uncomfortable, whether that's, with your economy, with the lack of leadership in this government. There's a lot of things that the Lord is trying to do right now to wake people up. And we've got, an interesting set of feasts coming up very, very soon in the latter part of September, around September
Right.
26th. We've got the Rosh Hashanah, the new year. We've got Feast of Tabernacles. We've got so many other ones that are coming up that have not yet been fulfilled, but they could be very, very soon with the way things are going.
Folks.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, I warn against idolatry. And all you're going to see on the TV for the next 17, 18 days is idolatry. It is, let's worship this person, and they're going to feed you the false narrative that they were just a saint. They were terrific. Oh my gosh, there's never been anybody like them, blah, blah, blah. They're people just like you and
they're
me.
People, and unfortunately, many times they're very fallen people. There's lawsuits right now that indigenous children in Canada that went disappearing after
a Catholic school. They never have been seen again after the Prince Andrew and her visit there.
And her visit, she was with them when they took some children.
And no one has ever approached them about that. Hey, what happened to those kids that you took that no one ever saw again? What about the kid coming out of the window of Buckingham Palace? What about all these other things that somehow gets memory hold? But folks, we can't allow ourselves to be lulled to sleep. Television. You can't.
Or television. Spencer, it's called programming for a reason.
You bet it is.
And folks, I mean, everything we're saying, is true. That's how truth hits people, Spencer.
It can be upsetting.
Of course. Oh, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's why I wanted to pause for just a second and say, this is probably affecting some of you. It's making you angry. First of all, from what I said,
how dare you talk about the,
I mean, how dare you say these things about the Queen? I mean,
hey man, if I didn't know any of this,
I can't believe that you would say something so awful about the dead or something. Yeah. Do what?
Well, even Putin has said some pretty crazy things about Queen Elizabeth. Now, let me tell you, hey folks, we love people. I loved her. I do. Yeah. My gosh, who doesn't want to have the ideological fairy tale of good people and bad people and the Queen, honor the Queen, God save the Queen, the longest reigning monarch,
in history of
nobody handled the media like she did. Nobody. She revolutionized so many things. We're not just giving you the rough paper, we're giving you the good too. I mean, she revolutionized media,
and there has to be good on that side. We know that
comfort to the country.
You can't just be all evil.
Right.
I mean, that's not how this works.
Right.
They can be evil and put on their robes and do their nasty things when nobody's looking. And then on the public side, they do great charitable work and they do wonderful things. But maybe ask Princess Diana how she feels about the royal family. Oh, you can't.
No, she had predictions.
That's interesting too. Brent, I don't know if you knew this. I mean, it's like I'm just going to throw all these deep dives at you. It was exactly September 8th, yesterday, back in 1997, that Princess Diana was featured on the cover of Time magazine.
Wow.
The same day that Queen Elizabeth passed.
Wow.
And
of course, as you brought before,
this is always planned. Whether she's been gone for a while or not, it doesn't matter. All I'm saying is how many coincidences does it take before it becomes mathematically impossible? And you got to go, this was planned. They're doing this by the numbers, and the symbology and the ritual that is going along with it is very dark.
It is, because the God of this world is Lucifer. He's not the God of the universe. But you also mentioned one of our other shows, Diana was killed in a tunnel dedicated to the goddess Diana. She had
Around
predictions
the
about her
time
own
of the
death.
sacrifice to Diana, too. So
Right.
the timing.
See, people say, well, you only see this, you watch too many movies. Folks, we're dealing with a foe that believes in their own twisted ideology that they have to tell you what they're about to do before they do it. And then if you protest it enough, they won't do it.
Right.
But if you don't, then they feel justified in their evil deeds, folks. So yeah, well, we saw that in the movie. Well, you know what, folks? They put it out in movies. Who do
We
you think
just
they
talked
are?
about,
We're
and we
just now
talked
learning.
about how tied up the entertainment industry is with this
Oh, no
religion.
kidding. Well, I mean, gosh, how old were you when you realized that Top Gun was funded by the government? It was a recruiting tool, and it worked, man. They got
Yeah.
record recruits after Top Gun. Well, do you think this latest one, who I'm sure it's great, big good patriotism. I mean, it definitely is a rebuke to today's wokeism, brokeism, but
But
still, folks, you know what? Jesus said that wisdom is proved right by her children, but with evil is also proved right by her children as well. People forget that in Genesis, God told Eve, your offspring will be at war with his offspring. Folks, you're not dealing with a little guy with a pitchfork and a goatee and horns. And, folks, you're dealing with a reality. You're dealing with true darkness that is not bound by time. It's not bound by the seasons. It's was created by God. Good versus evil. Evil's doing its job, and the Bible tells you the way out. Tells you how to secure, your destiny in His kingdom. The gospel of the kingdom, Spencer. And we weren't going to talk about the gospel of the kingdom, but the gospel of the kingdom is not the gospel of the cross. The gospel of the kingdom is God wanted a family. He was a father whose children were abducted. He would do
yes,
anything to get them back. That's the gospel of the kingdom. And but what I see, with the media has let people down. The government has showed who they are. The entertainment industry, they're all together, folks. Who
yeah,
can you trust? Well, you can trust God. You can
yeah.
trust God's
He's
people.
the only one we can trust.
That's right.
You brought up Top Gun, and the other side loves their numbers. They love their symbology, and there is one point in Top Gun where they have some numerology in there
Oh,
that
great.
represents them. If you watch the movie, you'll find it. It's near the end, but yeah, you'll find it. It'll be very obvious. It'll be in your face. And if
Wow.
you've done your research, you'll go, "Ah, really?" But yeah, but see, that proves again just how we live in a fallen world. We, the body of Christ, you might say, are the antibodies. Now, does that make sense? We live in a corrupted world and we're trying to fight infection and preserve things, right?
I've
But
never heard
we're
it put like
outnumbered.
that before. It's brilliant, Spencer.
Yeah. I mean, we're outnumbered. So we've got to stand, protect what we've got, stand that ground, and then take more ground as we go. We live in a fallen world. When people say, well, how could God allow this to happen? We live in a fallen world. Now, which God are you talking about? The God of this world? Because even Jesus said the God of this world, and he
Right.
recognized Satan as the God of this world. But who has the keys of death and hell now? Our Savior, Jesus Christ. But we are the antibodies fighting the infection and corruption that is in this world until we're
Now,
taken.
Spencer, you can't say that in a church. You might offend somebody. We don't want to
Oh, I've never been known
offend.
to do that.
No, you're not worried about offending people. You're just greedy. You want their money. Look, there's some great churches out there. Most of them are small, but to the pastors who preach the truth, who are owned, they're not dogs on a chain going the way of Balaam. They call right, right, wrong, wrong, good, good, and evil, evil. We salute you. But I'll tell you what, this skinny jean, fog machine, Starbucks, Disneyland garbage that doesn't want to offend anybody. Uh, Look where
You
that
better
got
start
you,
offending
folks.
somebody, because
So
you're going to be
desperate.
responsible for those people if they go to hell. That's what the word says.
You you're
The
you're
blood's on
responsible
you.
for what you know. And Spencer, you have always been very vocal about calling good good and evil evil. Even in the world, even the secular thing, as have I, because we're responsible for what we know. And if we love people, we'll tell them the truth. You know, I said on
Mm.
a recent Life Masters segment about say what you mean and mean what you say. Spencer, if I see you frolicking on the highway on your bike or something,
On
and
my tricycle, my big wheel.
a semi's coming towards you and you don't see it, if I don't tell you, oh, I don't want you to offend him, I don't want to, that means I don't love you. But if I love you, man, I'm going to run and dive and try to get you out of the way of that semi and say, I'm so sorry, man, but you almost got killed. If you love people, you'll warn them. If you love people more than money, pastors, you're going to warn them. You're gonna use that backbone. You're going to use that strength and that platform that you've been given, and you're going to warn people, because there is a penalty for the watchmen on the wall who do not warn the people.
Yeah.
But you know,
And
as we're
Brant, you
winding
brought up,
down our last handful of
you know,
minutes.
Brant, you brought up the Black Robe Regiment.
Aha! I was hoping you were going to go there. Yeah.
Yeah. So many times, and now we're seeing people in the church, and I'm going to say church leaders, and I'm going to say supposed church leaders, who
Right.
are now attacking prophets who have come forth, because whenever a nation is in trouble, God raises up his people and his prophets, right?
Right.
To speak truth to power. And now I'm seeing people attacking the prophets.
Mhm.
You're a false prophet. Wait a minute. I believe in Jesus Christ, the Son of God, the only Son of God, born of a virgin. I mean, these are actual prophets, but you have other people who voted them out of the church. We don't want you telling us that. We want to make the money, and we want to just kind of keep things on an even keel, and we don't want to stir anybody up because the church might split. Here's the deal, folks. You're going to be responsible, pastors,
Mhm.
for every word that comes out of your mouth. And we feel responsible to tell you, straighten up. You're going to find yourself on the wrong side of God if you don't. That means clean up your life, start speaking the truth, and start fighting against evil. So what if people leave? God will bring 10 times more. But it's just kind of like politics, you know? Every time that, and I just want to use this example, it's not a very good example, but it's the only one that came to mind, is when Republicans go to the middle and become a moderate so they don't offend the left and they weaken the right, they lose. That's what the church has done. We've tried to be over here. We want to be seeker friendly. We want to make everybody happy. And I want my skinny jeans and fog machine and a big check in my bucket. Problem is, that doesn't do anything for the kingdom. That
You've
does
seen
something for
that.
the bank
So
account.
have I.
And so it's going to have to change, folks. I mean, Brant and I, and I'm not saying we're the best examples of anybody. I'm a sinner saved by grace, just as Brant is. There are no perfect Christians. Okay. They're just people who are saved, and God is working on them. So don't think there ever is. And if you got offended in a church, well, then you got offended at a church, but don't take it out on God, because God
Yeah.
loves you and sent his only son to die for you. So please get your head right. Quit believing the
Yeah.
enemy and get your head right and get to a good church, because there's some good ones out there that are
Or a good gathering in a home, or
excellent. Yes.
I remember in the early 2000s, I started seeing the trend, because I planted 3 churches. I've been in ministry, youth, children's, worship, you know,
Mhm.
a veteran of the worship wars, too fast, too slow, too soft, too hard. Should have been worried about the country, not about the sound of the drums, but that's a different set of shows or seasons. But you know, I saw the switch. I saw businessmen leaving the church and meeting in coffee shops and saying, "Hey, we're gonna have a Bible study, and we're gonna choose what single mother to give money to this month,"
Right.
because they were tired of feeding a machine. And folks, don't get us wrong. We love the bride. The franchise, take it or leave it, but we love the bride. It was
Amen.
never meant to be a cage. You know, Constantine saw the business was bad. Those temples and temple prostitutes, they were getting the same business with these Christians who were taking over Rome. They filled the streets, they filled the marketplace, they filled the homes, singing about the one who they said was dead, and the believers, the people of the way is what they called him, said that he's alive. And what did Constantine? He had a vision, fixed all the business problems, you know, fixed all the problems, combined all the religions and called it Christianity, and filled the temples again. And when they
Sure.
Rome owned the pastors, they owned the church. And but there were good people all along the way, people who meant well. I know a lot of people who've been in ministry or are in ministry, and they mean
Yeah.
well, and they don't compromise. But
Right.
some find themselves in a position where they do. But I'm reminded of an old Babylonian tale where a corrupt judge was caught um, by the king, and the king had him skinned alive and covered the judge's bench with the tan skin of that corrupted judge, so that every judge that would sit in that place of authority had to sit on that bench covered with the skin of the corrupted. And you know what? Those might not be bad examples of the corruption we're seeing today. Whether it's in the church, whether it's in the school, whether it's in the government, folks. Reckoning is coming, Spencer. If you look at Sri Lanka, their president hightailed and ran because the millions of people came together and they said enough of the corruption, enough of the regulation, this weird subscription to this false global issue. It was all about money. It was all about control, all about modern day slaves and depopulation, folks. And the media won't report it, but we will. How would you encourage people to stand right now, Spencer?
Well, in the short term, I would encourage them to turn off the TV. And every time you see a story about the royal family, I want you to think about what we've said, and I want you to do a little bit of digging on your own, and then examine your heart to make sure, am I just feeling this because they told me to feel this? Am I just feeling awe and sadness because they told me to? That's programming. You don't have to. You didn't know them. You don't know them. You never met them. So
And
let
you
it
don't
go.
know them.
Yeah, it's idolatry. You do know the king of the universe, though.
Right.
And that's who you should be forming a relationship with, because he'll give you discernment and he'll show you and he leads you into all truth. So that's the encouragement that I would give you. Don't fall into idolatry. Check your heart, do a heart check, which is what we're supposed to do, judge ourselves. And then, if we are idolatrous, ask for forgiveness, turn, repent, and drive on.
There you go. Good words of wisdom, good words of encouragement. Be encouraged, folks. Don't lose courage. Be encouraged today. Find people who share your values, who love their country and love their families. It's getting easier to see good from evil. Isn't it, folks?
Well,
It's not a
I
matter of a
thought
political party. It's a matter of fruit. What's the fruit of their life,
I was going to throw this out there a minute ago when you said, you're seeing the evil and the good. When God says he separated the tares from the wheat or the goats from the lambs, there is no, hey, and then there was this group that sat on a fence.
Oh, you are right, my friend. And as we close out another great show, another deep dive is what I'd say.
Yeah.
Spencer, I appreciate your constant stance in public and in private.
Thank
And
you.
how you've always done that, brother. It's an honor to know you. Folks, we love you. We love our country. We love our families. We love our God. God bless you, and God bless America. We'll see you next time, Spencer.
You too, Brant. Love